Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and we're now going to continue with our ongoing unrated and underappreciated movie review series. And this edition we're going to concentrate on 47 Ronin. This is a historical fantasy epic. It was released in December 2013. It stars Keanu Reeves, Hiroyuki Sanada, Rinko Kikuchi, Koichi Baskai, and it was directed by Carl Rich. And it's a fictional story of the 47 Ronin, which is an actual real life group of samurai warriors, and there have been various novelizations and movies based on this group of samurai warriors. But 47 Ronin, this film version, is a much more of a fantastical account, and it's based in 18th century medieval Japan, and this is an environment which is really full of samurai warriors, of course, but also a lot of supernatural elements and dark and evil horrors throughout this environment, and we see a lot more of the spiritual and acts of witchcraft throughout this story. So it's much more of a supernatural fantasy that we're seeing of this version of the 47 Ronin. So we concentrate on these group of samurai warriors, and after years of loyal service, they suddenly find that after recent acts of betrayal and witchcraft, they are suddenly outlawed from the Alko domain era of this century of Japan that we are composed in. And over the story, we see that one leader of the group of Ronin eventually breaks free from his imprisonment, and he vows to reunite the group and gain their ultimate revenge. And in order to do this, he has to enlist the help of a half-breed warrior who has the ability to sense the acts of evil and witchcraft within medieval Japan, and he goes on to prove a useful ally in the 47 Ronin's quest for their revenge. Now for me, I've always been impressed by 47 Ronin, especially when I first saw it. I think it's a very visually stunning fantasy epic. It's full of great scenes, it's full of lots of imagination and very lush special effects. Now I think what also is good about 47 Ronin is that it doesn't get carried away with the fantasy elements. We've seen so many films like this where in terms of the aesthetical part of the storyline, they excel at the effects, the fight choreography or the CGI, but when it comes to the storylines and the characterizations, that's when they're found wanted. But that's not the case with 47 Ronin. I think it does a really good job of setting about its whole world that we're living on here. It sets about well its story, its plot, and we do get to spend time with the characters, and we get enough of a space to see where they come from and what is their overall motivations. There's a real earnest and sincere film, the tone and direction, and it takes the story and subject matter very seriously, which I always appreciate a lot. It never gets carried away with the special effects. It reminds me a lot in particular of other historical epics that I love so much, House of Flying Daggers, and in particular The Last Samurai. It's got that same kind of visual cinematography. Everything looks absolutely fabulous, all the locations, all the scenery, it all looks gorgeous. And this is a role that really, despite the kind of dark elements, you really want to embrace yourself and immerse yourself in and see how the story unfolds, and you really are appealed to these characters. It's always distinctive for me because it always reminds me, if we were ever going to get a live action version of the Ninja Scroll anime, then this would be it. For anybody who doesn't know, Ninja Scroll is one of the most famous and greatest animes ever regarded, and you can check out my channel to see a review of the Ninja Scroll. But if you look at the way that 47 Ronin is set up and all the scenes, and in particular with one of the characters involved and all of the supernatural and witchcraft scenes involved, it really does remind me a lot of Ninja Scroll. And I've always thought if we were ever going to get close to a live action Ninja Scroll movie, then 47 Ronin would be it. But I mentioned the characters involved, and they're very interesting and appealing characters. We do of course start with the main protagonist, Kai, played by Keanu Reeves of course, and he is a half-breed who is an outcast, and we see at the beginning of the movie he's fleeing away from his original clan, and he eventually gets discovered by the 47 Ronin group, and he spends a lot of his younger years being brought up within the samurai group, but he never gets the respect or the admiration of the samurai warriors because they know of his heritage as being a half-breed. He's always vilified because of his ancestry, so he's always dismissed whenever he brings about any ideas or suggestions on how to fight. We see a couple of early scenes when he's constantly saving other samurai, but he never gets the true credit that he deserves. And the other ability that he has is that he's able to sense all of the dark spirits and the witchcraft within medieval Japan. But again, anytime he tries to warn the samurai group of these dangers, they just dismiss it. So we see as well another major feature of his character, that he has a love relationship with Mika, who is the daughter of Lord Drasano, who is one of the major leaders of one of the big clans within this medieval Japan. And it's very much a typical tragic love story where we have two people who were in love but can never be together because of their origin. So of course, Mika, being the daughter of the samurai leader, can never be involved with a half-breed warrior. And we see multiple scenes throughout them expressing their love and desire for one each other, and we get good, I think, good chemistry between the two. We could have done maybe with a few more scenes to add the more sincere nature of their romance, but I think both actors do very well within these characters. We have Oishi, of course, who is the leader of the samurai warriors, and he is one person who initially dismisses Kai every time he goes to warn him about any witchcraft that is about. And he's a very noble warrior. He's completely committed and devoted to serving the samurai lord, and he's well played by Hiroyuki Sanada. This is a great performance, and I actually believe that Oishi is the main hero of the piece, despite the fact that you have Keanu Reeves in the lead role and he takes top billing. It is really Oishi who is the main hero. He's the one who drives the story. It's him that we see in multiple scenes, really encouraging people to join him, join the cause. We see him in multiple scenes where he's bringing back the samurai warriors together, where he has to rally around Kai to join his cause as well. So he is the one that really has the most personality and the most charisma, I feel, and the most sincerity within all of the characters. So he is the lead character for me within the story. We also have the main villain, which is Lord Kira, and he wants to rule Akko Domain for himself, and he has with him an assistant of the witch called Mizuki, and she has all of these multiple powers of witchcraft, and we see multiple scenes where she's morphing into different animals and different shapes. And throughout the movie we see how she manipulates and causes fractions within the samurai group and helps cause the 47 Ronin to be exiled from Japan. And it's a fantastic performance. I think from the actress is Rinko Kikuchi, and she really is the most distinctive character. She really does stand out a lot, and as I mentioned before with the Ninja Scroll comparisons, all of the scenes that we see her using her powers to manipulate people, it's really fantastic, and the special effects are really great, and he interacts well with her, and she really does have a fun with this performance. She really brings it up to the nth level on this. She really embraces the character and the dark nature of her personality, and it's quite a delicious performance from the actress, so I respect that very well. And also I do enjoy a lot the camaraderie and the brotherhood that we get from the other Ronin warriors, and the film does well to give us time within these warriors as we see them bond together, and there's a real loyalty and dedication amongst a group of samurai here, and that's fantastic. And I think if you have a group of characters who care about one another, then as a viewer you care about their story and where they come from and what happens to them in the future. As I mentioned, the effects are outstanding. I think for the most part it looks great if you're watching this on a Blu-ray or a 4K disc, and we see multiple scenes, especially at the beginning where we see Kai taking on this huge kind of wildebeest character. We get another great scene involving Kai where he has to go back to his original people to try and get help. I think they need swords, and we see this great sequence where there's a certain test that they have to carry out, and it's great visuals and it's great cinematography as we learn more about Kai's origin, and you get multiple scenes of that. It's a very handsome looking adventure. There are great scenes, very lush locations, it all looks fantastic. As I mentioned before, it reminds me of all the great historical epics in the past that I've watched most recently, and I just really can't find too much of a flaw really. The only real query I had was at the end, where I think maybe it does descend too much into a CGI clash kind of climax. I think it could have just reined it in a little bit in the final act, but overall this is a very sound and very strong, bold fantasy adventure. I really can't find too much wrong with it. I think all of the actors are very strong in this. Keanu Reeves he is Keanu Reeves, really. He plays his role as what he normally does, but the outstanding performances by the supporting cast are all great and fantastic, and I think overall 47 Ronin is a very compelling fantasy epic. So if I had to give a score for 47 Ronin, I would give it a 7.9 out of 10. Full of imagination, great visuals, great effects, compelling story with a good crop of compelling performances from very good actors on here. So I really can't find a flaw, and I think overall you will enjoy 47 Ronin in the long run, and I think you will find it a very compelling and visually pleasing aesthetical fantasy adventure. In its initial release, we look on here, it did have a hefty budget of 151 million. So when you hear figures such as that, it already rings alarm bell, because as we know, the original rule of thumb is that any film has to double its budget just to break even, and then it has to make that amount again to cover the marketing costs before it can start seeing profit. And unfortunately, 47 Ronin on its release, it only managed to gross 175 million worldwide, so that's barely topping its original production budget. So unfortunately, on its release, it was seen as a massive flop within critics and audiences alike, and I think that's a shame overall. I think the marketing didn't help. I think it was released amongst various other big movies around that time at Christmas. Christmas is always a difficult time to release such a big budget movie. I think maybe it may fade best if it was released maybe in August, September, October time. I think what you also have to take into account is that by the end of 2013, the fantasy epic had kind of phased out with audiences. We were brought back into it to an extent with the more historical adventures, you know, when we had the likes of Gladiator and Troy, and later on when we had Alexander and Kingdom of Heaven. That's when it will start to phase out. And of course, we previously had the Lord of the Rings films from 2001 to 2003, which was really the pinnacle benchmark of all fantasy epics. So by the time we rose around to 2013, the demand for this type of genre had really kind of phased out, and we of course a lot more focused at this point on the big franchise movies, and in particular the superheroes phases of movies. So the fantasy epic just didn't have the same kind of demand as what it did early on within that decade that it was released. And as well, Keanu Reeves, he wasn't quite the prolific actor that what he was in the early 90s and to what he is back now. You know, he was really struggling to find that box office hit again, and ironically he wouldn't find his way back to popular success again until the following year with John Wick. And I think again this was another disappointment in his career, and maybe it could have done with having a much more prolific star in the lead to help promote this movie in the long run. So I think those are overall the main reasons why it didn't succeed at the cinema. But for me, I just think it was a shame, because it was a great historical venture, and I actually saw potential to maybe have a set trilogy of films centered around the story, and I think there was enough potential to do that in the future. But those are my thoughts on 47 Ronin. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and also if you have any other suggestions of any other movies that you'd like to see me review in the future, any movies that you feel didn't get the appreciation or the recognition on their release or after release, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see if I can provide a review of those movies for you in the future on this channel. Also hit those like and subscribe buttons. The channel's continuing to grow now, and we're seeing a decent growth in the amount of subscribers and the amount of views as well, so that's very good. So I will continue to pursue with this channel and provide you as much high quality content as I can, and hopefully the channel can grow a lot more rapidly in the future. So those are my thoughts on 47 Ronin. Let me know what you think in the comments below. That's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.